You're a sales director or a sales manager, and you have this team, and you spend an absolute fortune on hiring the right people, doing your due diligence, looking at their personality types, really getting to understand who's going to be the great performer, looking closely at your measurement and your analytics. And yet the same thing always happens. 80% of the people that you hire end up doing almost nothing, and 20% do all the work. What is this incredible mystery of sales that we can't seem to put our finger on? Here to help us answer this question today is Brian De Beer. Brian, thank you for joining me on scottcundill.com.
Fantastic, Scotty. Thanks very much, man. What a pleasure to be here today. And you're 100% right. That frustration, that irritation is exactly what most directors, as small business owners, entrepreneurs, it's the question that challenges them all. Millions and millions are spent every month, every year on recruiting and training salespeople and trying to teach them what to say, when to say, how to say it. And yet the result is inconsistent sales. And we're still getting that, as you quite rightly said, getting the 80% productivity from only 20% of the people. So that's the unbelievable challenge we all face with.
So let's talk about inconsistency and consistency. What is it that determines an individual's ability to be consistent in their performance, but also in their results, versus those that just seem to be fleeting? They tend to be charismatic, great personalities. They look like they're going to be the perfect candidate, but then they turn out not to be. Give sales directors some advice here, Brian, please.
I think the one anomaly that we have in life today is that people think that to hire the right people and pay them the big salaries is the solution. Yet the real issue is that we need to understand that to change behaviors, we need to get the right habits in place, and the people need to focus on the right activities. Now, for them to do that, we have to get the right attitudes. And understanding that 96% of the decisions that are made in the subconscious and 4% in the conscious, we as sales directors, as managers, we need to find a way to understand how we're impacting that 96%. And everybody forgets that the key fundamental is the goal setting process. Get that right and align the individual's goals. Companies are out pushing their goals down on sales guys, telling them what they want to achieve. Yet the fundamental is, what is the sales guy's goal? So that's where the key is.
Okay, please define what you mean by goal, because as a sales director, you're thinking, okay, hang on a second. They've got goals. They've got their monthly targets. They've got their quarterly targets. They've got their annual targets. They've got goals. I've done my job. But I think what you're saying is deeper than that. Am I right?
Absolutely. And what we're saying about the goal setting process is we're saying the starting point is not the company's goals. And this is where I think most of you are saying, but hang on, no, you're missing it, Brian. The point is actually, unless that salesperson is passionate about what they want to achieve, and as a good manager, it's for me to align what they want to achieve with the company's goals, not telling them what the company wants. So that's the real strength, is to sit down with that person and say, we are hiring the whole person. We're not just managing the finance or hiring the financial side. That person's got health goals. They've got fun. They've got a family they have to look after. They've got friends. They've got a career. They've got aspirations. We need to understand that full circle, and we need to make sure that those goals that we do are SMART goals. They're specific. They're measurable. There's action involved. They're realistic, and there's a time limit. And we've got to understand the why. Too little time is spent on the goal setting, and that should be the most powerful time that you spend in the day or the month with your team.
This is incredible. Are you essentially saying that the role of a sales manager needs to be broadened to almost like a mentor or a coach? And if they can't do that, then obviously the organization needs to find those skills to be able to do that. Because this sounds new to me. We've hired salespeople before. We've looked at salespeople, and it's generally results driven. And yes, you spend a bit of time talking about their goals and their family life, but it's almost like there's this division, this gap between what we want them to achieve and I don't really want to talk about your family. It's not really my problem. It's not really my purpose. Am I stepping on too many toes? Am I asking questions where I shouldn't? It's a chasm there, Brian. How do you bridge that chasm and try to get to the goals of that individual?
Well, the most important thing that you've got to look at is you've got to understand that treat the person as a rounded wheel, and the spokes of the wheel are these 6 different areas in their lives. So if you are monitoring their success from 0 to 10, and if the one's too high and the other one's too low, that wheel won't be able to run. And that's the problem, because now that wheel's stuck in one place, and because it's stuck in one place, the salesperson is struggling to perform as a unit. And that's why we need to understand what are the areas that are stopping this wheel from rolling simply. And if we know what those elements are, we can work on those. We can set small, simple, smart goals. And the most important thing about smart goals, if you get the goal setting process right, the management becomes a breeze. The problem is that when we set goals that are company's goals, then we have to bring out the big stick. Then we have to struggle to manage these people because we're managing it to achieve the company goals. But when we are focusing on them achieving their goals for their reasons, for their benefit, it becomes very easy to manage them. Okay, because it's for their benefit. And it makes it a hang of a lot easier to keep them focused and motivated.
This is brilliant. You've got this wheel analogy stuck in my head now, because I've taken it a step further in my subconscious, like you said, because that's done 90% of the thinking while we're talking. So if you can imagine a wheel, like you said, if that wheel isn't balanced, what it ends up doing is it goes, whoo, whoo. It's inconsistent, right? It doesn't go properly, which is exactly the problem what we're having with sales. If you get the wheel balanced, and you talked about those 6 little pieces, then you can start to actually get more cohesion and more consistency. Have I oversimplified it? Is that correct?
That's exactly it. And the problem that actually happens is that in some of the areas, they are so badly off that the wheel doesn't even go kalunk, kalunk. It actually stuck in one place because it actually cannot move, because that area has made it so flat. It's made that area of the tire so flat that the guy can't move forward. And then the other thing that is missing is, once we've identified these 6 areas, the other missing link, and that's why this goal setting process is so important. Because remember, we spoke just now about convincing the subconscious. So if I'm convincing the subconscious and I'm saying, these are the 6 areas, they are the smart goals. Now remember, the 20%, 80% thing comes in again, because 20% of what we do in our day gives us 80% of our result. So once we've done the SMART goal and we put it into a clear format where it's specific, it's measurable, there's action involved, it's realistic, and there's a time limit, then I need to identify what are the 20% activities for each one of those goals. And if I know what those 20% activities are, I can then put them into a daily structure, and I can make sure that regardless of what happens in the person's day, that they will achieve those 20%ers in their daily goal. And that then creates the right behavior patterns and gives me the right attitude, because I can now monitor what I'm tracking myself throughout the day. I now have the right attitude. The subconscious is focused on this thing, and I'm producing consistent results.
Wow, that's incredible. Brian, just tell us a little bit about you then. I mean, you've obviously done this before, and I know you've been in this game a very long time. Just give us a quick little 2-minute overview and tell us a little bit about your career and how you've integrated this wheel into what you've taught and who you've taught and how much training that you've done, and some of the successes that you've experienced with the people you've trained.
Oh, look, I think what happened with me is that I had a sales force of 1,400 salespeople reporting to me from 8 to 7 different countries. And my biggest frustration is exactly what all the sales directors are sitting with here. We were spending millions on recruiting, staff turnover, and yet we still had 80% of the productivity coming from 20% of the people. So I had the opportunity to say, let's fire the other 80% because we can save millions by just firing these people. But that didn't make sense to me either, because that puts pressure on achieving the goals. So what I did was I created a system that said, it's not about the salesperson. It's about effective management and training of that person. And we created a system and a management process that's practical, that's simple, and we became the first direct selling force in the world where 80% of the productivity came from 80% of the people. And that was the real issue for me. And that changed the whole thing around for me, because now I wasn't wasting time. I can employ anybody that's hungry, that's excited. You don't have to have the gift of the gab. You don't have to have all the sales experience. You don't have to be the smoothest talker in the world. In fact, of my 1,400 salespeople, my top salespeople came from industries like accountancy, from teachers, people that really you do the introvert type guy, but disciplined. Because when I took this accountant, I said, make 30 contacts today. He didn't make 29, he didn't make 31, but he made 30 and he did it every single day. And that's the power of sales, is what are we doing consistently? How are we managing that those 20% activities are consistently happening every day?
I love that. And that whole process, it's about process driven. And you need to get that process driven mentality. And it's not about the rah-rah, great personality, gift of the gab. You think they're going to perform so well, but they don't. And it's the quieter ones that just consistently deliver and do their daily process inside out. But as you say, unless you know what that process is, unless you know what that day-to-day process is, and you know what their goals are, because the process comes out of those goals and then aligns it to what needs to be achieved from a sales perspective, then you can have amazing results. Brian, to finish off, just tell us about your process, your system, and how you actually help these people and these sales directors and these sales individuals achieve their best.
Well, as I said, the key factor for small businesses and for entrepreneurs is get the management process right. So unfortunately, we don't have money and time to manage, to get a full-time manager. And most of businesses think that a full-time manager is a waste of money. But that's the absolute key. The process needs to be very driven. The goal setting needs to be done effectively. So you need to have a system that ensures that. We need to know where the leads are coming from before the month starts. You need to have a daily tracker that actually knows exactly what is happening every single moment of the day, and that we're tracking everybody's performance. Because the key to consistent success is effective goal setting, but I cannot set goals unless it's based off my history. And I'll only believe my activity if you can bring my goals down to something that I can control, which is how many people I speak to and how many leads I get. If we can bring it down to that, as simple as that, then the person's going to believe in the goal. But they're only going to believe in the goal if it's based on their ratios. So you need to have a very simple system that tracks exactly. So when the month comes to an end, we know what their ratios are. And when we plan forward, we're planning off their ratios. And that's where self-confidence comes from, knowledge and experience. It's my ratios, I know what I'm doing, and now the manager's process is every day to take 10 minutes and say, what did you do well today? What did you do badly today? What can we change tomorrow? Because if we write down tomorrow's plan today, the subconscious, once again, the powerful driver, the whole night is convincing us how that plan is going to work and making us feel good about ourselves. And so management and system and process is the key solution to this all.
It's phenomenal. Now, Brian, really, really interesting. Jeepers. You know, sales managers, sales directors, sales people listening to this has got to be like, okay, I love it. Where do I start? But also, I'm sure they're a little bit apprehensive that this is going to be a deeply convoluted, complicated, expensive system. Just tell us about the actual process. Is somebody going to contact you? What's the first step to make with you?
Well, I think the most important thing, because it's so radical for a lot of people and it's so unbelievable that you can have a simple process that works. So what I do is I offer people a 45-minute free one-on-one consultation. Let's have a look. Let me tailor how this program will work for their business, if at all. And then they can make the decision out of that to say, this works for me, it's personalized, I can see it working, I understand how it's going to work for me. And so the easiest is we give a free one-on-one consultation. The guys can go to my website, Brian De Beer Sales Academy. I've got an online academy that teaches people in short bursts of 8 to 12 minutes, all these things. Plus I've got the Brian De Beer Sales Solutions, and they can just tick there. It says free consultation. They can click on it. We can book a time and we'll spend 45 minutes with everybody.
Brian, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. I will put Brian De Beer's details in the description of the video. Brian, this has been phenomenal. I just feel that this is something everyone's got to do. Not talking to Brian De Beer might be hazardous to your sales. Brian, thank you so much for joining me on scottcundill.com. It was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, thank you for the time. And listen, let's go out and make a difference.
Agreed.